This section about congruence, we found that all of the corresponding parts in each figure need to be congruent for the figures to be congruent to each other. So there are shortcuts though, because the proofs that we were doing in that section, you had to show every single corresponding piece congruent. So here we're going to learn that there are 5 shortcuts that we can use that cut that work in half as far as proving triangles congruent. So I'm going to walk you through all 5 right now because a big thing about the test is identifying which theorem or postulate we're using to prove that the triangles are congruent. So we're going to be looking at pictures and we're going to be identifying if the triangles are congruent, and then we're going to be choosing which one of these reasons we believe to be the reason why they're congruent. So the first one is side, side, side. And we abbreviate that with SSS. And eventually we're going to get to talking about similarity as well. So I like to write SSS congruent because there's one that also is used for similarity, but right now we're just talking about congruent figures. So side, 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 congruent. And what that looks like, you can see these pictures here. We've got 2 triangles and all 3 of their sides are marked with corresponding markings. So we've got AB congruent to RS, BC congruent to ST, and AC congruent to RT. When all 3 angles in one triangle are congruent to 3 corresponding, sorry, I think I said angles. When all 3 sides in one triangle are congruent to all 3 corresponding sides in another triangle, then the triangles are congruent by side, side, side. And this is what we would put for our reason why these are congruent. Of course, we also have to name them, and naming them is important that you go in the right order. Here they said A, B, C, so notice they started at A, they went to B, then they went to C. I want you to see that they went first across the side with 1 mark, and then across the side with 2 marks. So we have to go across the side with 1 and then the side with 2. So to think about where we're going to begin to be able to do that. We're going to have to begin at R, go across the side with 1 marking, and then across the side with 2 markings. And so we'll name it RST for naming the second triangle. That's going to be another thing that we're going to have to be able to do. So that's side, side, side right there. Another reason is side, angle, side. This happens when you have 2 sides, and this is referred to as the included angle, which is the angle between those sides. See how this angle is formed by the 2 sides that are marked. So I'm just going to highlight on here just to show you. This side has 1 marking, and this side has 1 marking. Then I've got the side with 2 markings, and the side with 2 markings. I want you to notice that the angle in between them is the one that's marked, because it's formed by those sides. That's why when you're listing, always think of like S for side and A for angle. We have 2 sides in this picture that are marked and only 1 angle. Then you think about where the angle is. The angle is between these 2 sides. So the A in your name is in the middle. It's between the 2 sides. So that's how you know to use side, angle, side here. 4 of our reasons use the letters S's and A's in them for these shortcuts. I want you to keep in mind as we're going through this that none of them are cuss words, and my geometry teacher told me there's no donkeys in geometry, if you know what the bad name is for a donkey. Just as you're writing your reasons, be sure that you don't accidentally write angle side side or side side angle, because that would be a bad word backwards, and that's not one of the shortcuts. So as far as people like remembering the shortcuts, you just have to make sure you're not putting angle side side or side side angle, because that's never a reason. Hypotenuse leg is kind of the oddball of the family of the shortcuts. We would write HL to represent that one. And so looking in this picture, I want you to notice about HL, although there's 2 letters in the reason, there are 3 things you need to look for. You need to spot the right angle, otherwise it can't be HL. So we've got an angle marked in each triangle. So that's one angle. And when you're naming the reason, I want you just to like make sure that you have them, that they're marked kind of the same. Like this is the hypotenuse, this is the hypotenuse, they have the same marking. This is one leg, and they have the same marking. They don't have to be facing the same direction, but you need to make sure the hypotenuse is marked the same as this hypotenuse, and that one leg is marked. They could have marked this leg. It doesn't matter, as long as just one of them is marked. So when I'm naming the reason, I always look at one of my triangles. I make sure they match, of course, but I look at one of them. So I've got an angle, and I've got this side, and I've got this side. The angle is not between the sides. Between the sides would be angle at B. As I'm looking at this right now, I might be thinking that it's angle side side, and then I should hopefully be thinking this would be a bad word if I wrote it down, and that's not one of our shortcuts. So if it's looking like it's going to be angle side side, I want you to think about HL, because that's the only time that this theorem works. But they came up with a better name for it. So it's hypotenuse leg, because we've got a hypotenuse and a hypotenuse here that's marked, and a leg, and they both have a right angle marked. So hypotenuse leg is the reason for this picture. Angle side angle happens when you've got two angles marked and then the side in between them. So I want to help you just kind of identify how this is working out. This angle has one marking, that one has one marking. C has two, angle F has two. The side between them, right there, has one marking. The side between them has one marking. See how this side is between the two angles. So as I'm picking my reason, I think about how each triangle is matching, like the marks are in corresponding locations. And I notice that I have an angle, and I have an angle, and I have the side that's in the middle. And so if I'm labeling my picture, I should start to recognize that this would be the angle side angle postulate that can show that these triangles are congruent. So you can have angle, side angle with the side in between your angles. The last shortcut is called angle, angle, side. I mean, they start to blend together, you know, they all have angles and sides in them. They look a lot alike. So that's why I always just say, you know, just remember, don't be writing any cuss words for your reasons, and then you're pretty much going to be good. Angle, angle, side happens when you have two angles. It's very similar to the previous one. I've got two angles marked that are matching, but the side is over here. It does not connect the two that are marked, so it's not in the middle. So as you write the reason, the side is not in the middle of the statement. The side's just written on the end. So you've got your two angles and then your side just written at the end. So these are the 5 reasons that you can use to show triangles are congruent with only needing 3 pieces of information. So this is going to make it a lot shorter for us in the long run for showing our triangles congruent.